You are now entering the debarkation area. No talking, no smoking.
Welcome to Escape from New York, the official story of the film. This series will look behind the scenes of the forthcoming book that celebrates the making of the movie from 1981.
S.D. Pliskin. He robbed the Federal Reserve Depository. Life sentence, New York Maximum Security Penitentiary.
I'm filmmaker and author John Walsh, and I'll take you on a journey through a dystopian future to discover how John Carpenter's vision has become the ultimate cult film of the last 40 years.
Get a new president.
We're still at war, Pliskin.
I will be speaking with the cast, the crew and fans of the film and giving you a unique insight into the making of the book.
You're Snake Plissken, ain't you?
Snake Plissken, Duke. The man sent him in here. Something's going down. We need him.
I will reveal details of upcoming events, and there will be a chance to win copies of the book too.
I can't hear you.
You are the Duke of New York. You're a number one.
Congratulations, Darren. You won the competition on the Films of John Carpenter Facebook page run by Dean Howson. Is it fair to say you could be the number one fan for Escape from New York?
Probably not the number one fan, but pretty close, I would imagine. I'm quite obsessed by it for some reason. I don't know why. It's that there's something that just struck me about the film that is sort of stuck with me for years and years and years. I don't know why, but it is. I could go back, I could watch it every single day of the week and it wouldn't bore me to tears.
I think that's the true kind of test of a film. If it comes out in new formats, if you've already got it on one format and another, but you want the new format, which I always do, then it's a kind of an indication of it if it's a favourite film. So when did you first see the film? Did you see it in cinemas or was it on VHS? I
got a feeling it's got to be VHS. Either that or on actual TV late at night one time. Because I always remember whenever it was on TV, it had to go on.
It's not the future we wanted, but the future that happened. Once a great city, now a high-security prison, designed to keep society's criminals in. But now, everything rides on getting one person out.
The survival of the human race, Pliskin. Something you don't give a shit about.
Yes, probably on TV was probably the first time, I would imagine. And since then, it sort of went from there to buying the VHS, to buying the DVD, to buying the Blu-ray, to buying the German 2K version of it, and the 4K, and then the Steelbooks, and onwards and onwards.
So you must be looking forward to this coming out in a couple of weeks' time. Escape from New York, the official story of the film. It's taken 40 years. Were you surprised it took that long for somebody to finally do a making of book?
Yes, I mean, they obviously that I know about all the deleted scenes were stored in a warehouse, and that went up in smoke. So there's never going to be anything added to it apart from the bank robbery scene, which I believe John only has that because he had the real stored at his house. So I would have liked to have seen another version of it because obviously I've read the Mike McKay book, so I know things that should be in there in the film that aren't in it. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing what you've managed to dig up.
So hopefully there's going to be a few surprises in there. There's some unpublished photography, but good stuff. Often when people say unpublished photos, you look at them and think, well, they weren't worth publishing. So we're hoping with this, because it's licensed by Studio Canal, who own the film. They've been very cooperative, and it's my second Studio Canal book. If you knew, last year I did Flash Gordon, the official film, which was even longer in coming because people wanted to make that book for years and years, but there was rights issues and so on.
Yes! Must be my lucky day.
But in terms of your personal fandom, you've obviously you've bought the things that I've bought and that lots of people have bought, but there are a few exceptions to your fandom that put you, as it were, a step above most of us. And what would you say that is?
Well, I've got obviously a life plot one, probably the smartwatch. I was one of the backers on that one. I've got the original Fanon walkie-talkie that he uses in the film, converted to it. The original Sub Wars game is converted to that he uses for the present track. I've got one of those. It clicks on it. I've got the full costume, the jacket, the trousers were made specially. The top was, on the boots. So I do the cosplay of it. So that's one of my little things that I like doing. But there is little things like the Escape from New York board game, which not many people know. I've got one of those. I've got records. It's like the record that came out last year through Waxwork. They did a new version of it with Mark Aspinall's art on it. I like the art so much. I contacted Mark. I managed to buy a print of it, which I don't believe many other people have. Which then he also, on the inside when it folds out, is all the gun table. He's given me a print of that one. He's given me a print of the booklet as well. So I've got 3 great big prints, which not a lot of people have. So they're all ready to be stored and framed up. And when I've got when my children move out, and I can grab one of their rooms and turn it into my own little room.
That's the plan, isn't it? You can turn it into your own den and make it just exactly as you would as a kind of collector's, because American people do that, don't they? They always have a spare room where they can put things behind glass. I'm always slightly envious when you see that, and they take you downstairs into their basement, and they have all of these sort of chambers where they have full-size maquettes and everything else. So I think we need to do that here. So you touched upon it briefly, that enormous Casio-style digital watch, Darren, and you're wearing that today for us as well. What can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, there's a company called Ridgewood Watch Company that was in Atlanta, Georgia. He liked the idea of it, but instead of having a prop of the item that Snake uses, he turned it into a wearable smartwatch. So if you get a text message, it comes across the screen. It's got a countdown timer on it. It's very large and very big, but there's a limited run on it. But the other people have gotten they're serialized, but mine is slightly different, as in the box that I've got is signed by many of the cast. So as I've managed to go along, I've got John to sign it, Dean Cundy, Natalie Stevens, the lady that played the terrorist in the beginning of the film that crashes the plane,
right, yes.
Alan Howarth, Charles Cyphers. I've managed to get them to sign it. I've locked a space in the middle, hopefully one day for her to sign it. That's the number one thing, to get that autographed in there.
Cool. Well, originally Kurt Russell wasn't going to be the original choice for the picture. They wanted other actors, and of course, that often happens with films. Warren Oates was going to be playing the part of Brain, and Warren Oates was also going to be playing the part of Dr. Zarkov in Flash Gordon, which was eventually played by Topol. So it's kind of interesting. The casting for the non-lead characters can be quite a sort of revolving door, and it's hard to imagine other actors. But even the great Kurt Russell, the studio, or Bob Remy at Avco Embassy, wanted Charles Bronson, who was hot from Death Wish. It's hard to imagine the film with Charles Bronson, who's a great actor.
I think the cast that they managed to get together, including Isaac Hayes for the Duke, you just can't imagine it. It's one of those where it's set in stone, and you cannot imagine anybody else in those roles.
And absolutely, and you touched on Isaac Hayes there. All the other actors are brilliant performers and professionals. Your Ernest Borgnine and the brilliant Donald Pleasance. But yet Isaac Hayes, that's a really sort of a solid gold casting choice, that he becomes the Duke of New York. You can't imagine, if the film was ever remade or looked at again, who would play the Duke of New York? Who could do Isaac Hayes as well as he could? And he was such a sweet man. People were telling me on set that he would recount stories, and he would sometimes sing songs, because it's quite difficult physical shoots. And they were saying what a genuinely sweet man he was. And yet he was playing this ferocious character. The Duke of New York is like the ultimate sort of all-round bad guy gangster, isn't he? That's
right. Even down to the jacked up limo. It's just one of those things where you just can't imagine any other people, because it wouldn't work for somebody else being the Duke. I don't know.
mean, people probably ask you this all the time. Do you have a favorite scene or a favorite line? And these things change, don't they, over the years when we rewatch the film? But what for you, kind of, Darren, are your sort of, if you had to choose top 3 moments?
Top 3 moments is when Snake meets Hulk for the first time in Hulk's office.
I'm not a fool, Pliskin.
Call me Snake.
I also like the bit where he meets Cabby in the hallway, and he with the Molotov cocktail, and he says, "It's like gold round here," and he throws it out the window.
This stuff is like gold around here, you know.
And probably when Snake meets Brain for the first time, he's, "Don't call me Harold."
I know him. Look at his face. He's lying.
Right, Harold, I'm lying. So I might as well have some fun and keep looking by myself.
Rain!
Talk to him, baby.
Rain, you'll kill us both of you!
You gotta tell him, all right, Harold! You always were smart, Harold.
Just one thing right now. Don't call me Harold.
That's I think that's my top 3 of the whole thing.
My favorite is any of the interactions with Donald Pleasance as the president. I would love to have seen more of that. You could imagine the pre-title sequence not being the bank robbery at all, but being something around Air Force One, and what Donald Pleasance as the president was like. You can really kind of imagine an expanded universe on that. And when he has that tussle with the Duke of New York, and he has to say he's a number 1.
I can't hear you.
You are the Duke of New York. You're a number 1.
That's a great line, isn't it? And some of those lines were picked off, weren't they, for the soundtrack release, which in itself was quite unusual at the time, wasn't it?
That's right. When you listen to the original soundtrack and then you listen to the remastered one, it's very different in tone. Some of the tunes that you listen to, you think you know them, but when you listen to the original one without the remastered on it, it sounds very different.
Yeah, there's a much more reverb, isn't it, on the remastered one? So I think there's much more signal. They're from the magnetic recording. So even though these were created electronically, everything had to be mixed down onto 1/4-inch tapes for the dubbing process. So everything is coming from a magnetic source. And I spoke to Alan Howarth in the book about that. He told me interesting stories about that and about Ennio Morricone on the thing. I needed, what's that saying in the Jaws? You know, we need a bigger boat. I needed a bigger book, but there was so much we couldn't get in, which we got the best stuff in. Of course, we did for fans, but there is more to be said. And part of the reason we created this podcast series was because there are so much more information with fans like yourself and other people. We've got an upcoming podcast with the guy who found the original trailers for the film, which ended up being on various DVD releases. And you may have seen my chat with Matt Ferguson on an earlier podcast, the poster artist. His art is superb, isn't it, for the film?
Yes. I've got the 4K version of this thing. I also got his version of the steelbook as well, which is like a goldy color, which is even, I think, is just perfect. I'd love to have that as a poster, but he did sell it, but he sold out of it. So I'm gonna wait one day. I'll get one.
Now we've gone with Barry E. Jackson's classic cover here, which is superb, and we have a very high-res version of that, thanks to the folks at Studio Canal. For us in the UK, of course, there was the French version poster, which we saw mostly first, which I really like too, and of course that's in the book. Do you have a favorite poster of all the variants? Because we've got all of the original variants plus Matt Ferguson's work in the book.
Well, I don't really have a favorite. I mean, my first vinyl record that I've got, which I got John to sign at his concert, is that French version, which is, he's got his autograph on the bottom of it. That's my favorite one. Then I've got the record with that art on it as well. Then I've got the one with Mark Aspinall on it as well. So there is some art which is the Alan Howarth soundtrack does. It's got the picture of the Statue of Liberty, and it's got a lot of graffiti and all that kind of thing. I quite like that kind of artwork as well, which I think it's not, although it's not got any snake on it, it's a different thing altogether. I think that is probably my favorite.
It's amazing. So many different people brought different looks and designs to it. Now, going back to your cosplay, how long have you been doing that? Because in this country, cosplay is relatively new in the last kind of decade, whereas in America with Comic-Con and those sorts of conventions, people really since the 70s and Star Trek and trying to get it back on the telly were kind of gathering en masse. But over here in Europe, and especially in the UK, it was fairly slim pickings when we were growing up, I would say, Darren, wouldn't you?
Yes. In probably 2016, 2017, I went to the first one with my daughter. She wanted to wear a costume for Doctor Who. She went off to see all the doctors and all that kind of thing. And she turned around and said, well, why don't you try something? So I just came up with a pair of camouflage trousers. And I thought, well, this has got to be the one I got. An eye patch, which you couldn't really see out of. Stuff a wig on, because obviously I haven't got much hair. And it just went from there. And as I went on, I've upgraded. I've managed to get hold of a pair of trousers properly printed. Then I had the top made with the zips put into it. Then I found out that Wested Leather actually do a reproduction of the leather jacket. So I thought, well, I'll buy one of those. Then I bought a new pair of boots and upgraded the front, made the plates for the front, and it's gone on and on with that. So I'm probably 95% screen accurate, I would imagine now.
And on your Facebook page, the photography that you've created really does look, you have to look twice, because you think, oh, is that a scene from the film, or is that Dick Warlock, the stunt double, doing something there for Kurt Russell on set, who used to do a lot of his fight scenes? And I had to do a double take, because really you've created something a step beyond cosplay, because you've placed yourself effectively in scenes from the film as well, which capture the same sort of dark atmosphere.
Yes, well, I became part of a cosplay group, and they arranged to go to Gloucester Prison, which is now shut, and to have a big photo shoot inside with they had all their costumes there as well. All the photographers were invited along, and that's where that's all come from. So they had where it's usually for paintballing. So they've got an outside helicopter they strip down. So it's one of those things where we've managed to get in, do some photos. They've edited it slightly, and it's come out absolutely brilliant.
Now, earlier when I asked you, you're the number one fan, you said you don't think you are, but is there someone who's more kind of committed than yourselves? I mean, I haven't seen anyone more committed or as accurate as you doing this.
Well, there is a chap that runs a Facebook page. I think it's the Escape from New York and LA fan page. He's talked to people behind the scenes, and he's got articles, and he's got screen grabs and PDFs of stuff that I've never seen before. And basically, when he's put up, oh, this is the walkie-talkie that we've met, that was actually used in the film. I've used his information to try and track one down, which is like looking for a needle in a haystack. But I've managed to find one. And then it's one of those things where once you've got the information, which he manages to get, that's quite handy for other fans like we are.
Absolutely. So back in the day, where did you get your fan information? For me, it was like Starlog and Starburst, if I was allowed to buy them. They weren't that cheap. Those magazines were quite dear. So where will you find your information? Was it similar sort of printed magazines? Yes, they used to go into a place, Forbidden Planet, in things like Pick Up Magazine, and just glance through, which you don't really take much notice of. Back in that days, it was all basically Star Trek and a few Fangoria magazines. Not really into what I would say horror. I mean, I watched Halloween probably about 2 or 3 times, and although I own the thing, I don't think I've ever watched it all the way through more than twice, even though I like the film. But it's usually from that stuff, and of course, then when internet came out, everything was readily available that you could get hold of. But now I've gone back the way. I've been looking for magazines that have got anything to do with Escape from New York. So I managed to source a few things like the official collector's magazine with the poster inside of it, which is the big quad poster of the French version, and things that I've managed to just slowly bring back together a little bit by bit. So I'll finish off by asking you about Escape from LA, because people often don't know, and I did some radio interviews where people said, do you think there'll ever be a sequel? And I was like, there was a sequel. It was called Escape from LA. Who hasn't done the research here? So, I mean, we've both seen the film. There's lots to like about the film, but what's your feeling? Because when it was coming out, I dare say you were very excited.
Yes, I still like it. I know a lot of people that I know that like Escape from New York don't like Escape from LA. It's entertainment. Yes, it's a sort of rehash of the original film, but sometimes it proves that sometimes when you've got a bigger budget, it doesn't work as well.
Your rules are really beginning to annoy me.
So you can think, well, I can do CGI here. CGI doesn't work quite well. Perhaps in the future they'll go back and re-CGI it and make it a little bit different. I liked it. I wouldn't say it's great, but then it's Snake Plissken, so I'm gonna like it no matter what. So it doesn't make any difference to me.
This town loves a winner. We say we play a little Bangkok rules. Nobody draws until this hits the ground. You ready? Draw. You got a problem with that?
Going back now, finishing off on Escape from New York, of course, there's all these computer graphics you can see behind me, which, of course, were done on an animation table. Not all of this was done by John Walsh, who'd worked on Star Wars and done the vector graphics, but done them the old-fashioned way by hand in the kind of Disney animated style in some cases, and filmed boxes with tape on them in other cases. We never really think, do we, of going back to Escape from New York and thinking let's redo the effects, or let's, it's got stereo sound and I think 7.1 sound now, which is a good thing. Yeah. And it's got the enhanced picture. But I and you, I think, are of the belief that we don't need to go and tinker with those FX, do we?
No. I think everything that was done perfectly for the budget. You can't change something back then. I mean, will it enhance it? Probably not. Will it make much difference to the actual story of it? No, not really.
And I think it locks it within its own kind of atmosphere. I'm a trustee of the Ray Harryhausen Foundation, and when Ray stopped making films in the 80s, people said, it's because his technique is old-fashioned. People didn't want it anymore. Yet we look at early CGI and we look at early Ray Harryhausen, and people know what they prefer. And Ray Harryhausen now has a place both on the shelves of supermarkets where people are buying his films still, but also in people's memories and hearts, because there's something about physical special effects compared to digital special effects. People have I think a closer connection to them, and feel that because it existed in the physical world, somehow it makes it more real, even though we know it's models. So I'm going to give you the last word on this, Darren, to finish off. What would you say to people who haven't seen Escape from New York and are thinking about seeing the film or buying the book? It'd be strange to buy the book without seeing the film, but what's your message to people who are watching?
Watch the film, enjoy it. It's escapism. It was set in the future, which is now our past. So don't take too much into it, but it's a good, enjoyable dystopian romp.
That's brilliant, Dan. Well, thanks for your time today, and I look forward to hearing what you think of my new book.
Brilliant.
Right, cheers.
Fantastic. Thanks, John.
Bye now.
Bye.
Copyright in Escape from New York, the official story of the film, is owned by John Walsh and Titan Books Limited, under license from Studio Canal. This recording may not be reproduced in whole or in part without written permission from us. The views expressed within these podcasts do not necessarily reflect those of the associated companies or its employees. For further terms and conditions, please contact us via our Facebook page, Escape from New York, the official story of the film.